Imagine standing on a beach, toes in the water, watching waves roll in like the ocean is politely introducing itself. What it does not mention is that beneath that calm surface lies the largest living space on Earth, a place so vast and hostile that humans have explored more of the moon than what is directly below their own boats. The deep ocean is not just deep in the casual sense. It is miles of darkness stacked on top of darkness, a vertical wilderness that makes Mount Everest look like a speed bump. And the deeper you go, the less forgiving it becomes, like a place designed specifically to remind humans that we are, in fact, not in charge here. If this quiet exploration of what lives in parts of the ocean humans rarely reach helps you relax tonight, please like the video, subscribe to the Deep Sea Documentary channel, and leave a comment sharing when and where you're listening, so this gentle science can reach more people who fall asleep to the deep sea's hidden life. Most of the ocean is deep sea, not the sunny coral reef kind that ends up on postcards, but the cold, pressurized, lightless majority that starts once sunlight gives up and heads home. From the surface to the seafloor, the ocean averages nearly 4 kilometers deep. That is 4,000 meters of water pressing down with quiet, relentless force. For every 10 meters you descend, the pressure increases by the equivalent of 1 atmosphere. By the time you reach the depths, where the seafloor sprawls out like an alien desert, the pressure is hundreds of times greater than what your body is used to. Your lungs would collapse, your bones would not stand a chance, and your internal organs would have a very bad day, all without the ocean making a sound about it. This is why humans do not just casually swim down to see what is living there. The deep ocean is not impressed by bravery. It only respects engineering. Submersibles built to survive these conditions are wrapped in thick shells of metal, often shaped like spheres, because nature and physics both agree that corners are a terrible idea when the universe is squeezing you from all sides. Even then, failure is not dramatic or explosive. It is instant. One moment you are fine. The next moment you are part of the ocean, compressed so quickly that physics barely has time to say goodbye. Down there, pressure does not knock. It simply arrives. And yet, despite these dangers, humans keep trying to go down. Not because it is easy, but because it is unknown. The deep ocean represents one of the last great frontiers on Earth, a place that has existed for billions of years without witnesses. Entire mountain ranges, trenches deeper than the Grand Canyon is tall, and plains larger than countries stretch across the seafloor, all hidden beneath water that blocks sound, light, and curiosity with equal efficiency. Satellites can map the surface of Mars in detail, but when it comes to the deep ocean, much of our knowledge comes from brief visits, blurry camera footage, and instruments dropped into darkness like scientific messages in bottles. There is also a psychological barrier. Humans are visual creatures. We like horizons, landmarks, and the comforting idea that if something goes wrong, we can swim up. The deep ocean offers none of that. There is no up you can reach, and no light to guide you, and no air waiting at the surface. It is isolation taken to an extreme. Even seasoned explorers describe the experience as unsettling, not because anything attacks them, but because the environment itself feels alive in its indifference. The ocean does not care that you are there. It will not notice when you leave. And yet, life thrives there. That is the part that makes the deep ocean truly fascinating. In a place where pressure crushes steel, temperatures hover near freezing, and sunlight never arrives, living things have not only survived, but diversified. They have adapted to conditions that would destroy most surface life instantly, turning what looks like an uninhabitable void into a functioning, interconnected world. The deep ocean is not empty. It is simply unfamiliar. And unfamiliar things tend to make humans nervous. So this descent is not just a physical journey downward. It is a mental one. It requires letting go of surface world assumptions about what life needs and how it should look. No blue skies, no green plants, no gentle environments. Just darkness, pressure, and time. A lot of time. Enough time for evolution to get creative, experimental, and occasionally a little weird. As we begin this journey into parts of the ocean humans rarely reach, remember this. The deep sea is not a scary place because monsters live there. It is scary because it reminds us how small our comfort zone really is. At a certain depth, the ocean quietly flips a switch and turns the lights off forever. Sunlight fades, then vanishes completely, leaving behind a world where day and night no longer exist as concepts. There are no sunrises, no shadows, no warm glow filtering through water. Just darkness so complete that vision, the sense humans rely on most, becomes optional at best and useless at worst. And yet, life does not pack up and leave. Instead, it adapts in ways that would seem ridiculous if they were not so effective. When sunlight disappears, photosynthesis disappears with it. That alone sounds like a deal breaker for life as we know it. On the surface, sunlight is the foundation of food webs, powering plants, which power everything else. In the deep ocean, that entire system is gone. But evolution, faced with this challenge, did not panic. It improvised. Animals living in eternal darkness shifted away from relying on external light and began producing their own. If the sun refuses to show up, you simply become the sun, or at least a tiny, blinking version of it. Bioluminescence is the ability of living organisms to produce light through chemical reactions inside their bodies. This light is not warm like a bulb and not fiery like a flame. It is cold, efficient, and incredibly controlled. Deep-sea animals can turn it on and off, brighten it, dim it, or shape it in precise patterns. This is not accidental glowing. This is intentional illumination, built through millions of years of fine-tuning. In a world without sunlight, light becomes a language. Different species use their glow for different reasons. Some flash signals to communicate with members of their own kind, ensuring that they find the right partner in a place where everyone looks like a floating shadow. Others use light to lure curiosity, drawing in animals that mistake a glowing dot for something interesting, more edible, or worth investigating. In the deep ocean, curiosity is dangerous, and glowing objects are often the last interesting thing a creature ever sees. The colors of bioluminescent light are not random either. Most deep-sea light is blue or blue-green because those wavelengths travel farthest through water. Red light barely travels at all, which means it is effectively invisible at a distance. Some animals exploit this by producing red light in an environment where almost no one else can see it. It is like having night vision goggles in a world where everyone else is blind. You can see others clearly while remaining hidden yourself, which is a powerful advantage when food is scarce and danger is everywhere. But light is not just about seeing. It is about being seen or not being seen on your own terms. In the deep sea, while producing light is a risk, anything that glows becomes a beacon in the darkness, potentially attracting predators from far away. That means bioluminescence must be used carefully, strategically, and often sparingly. Many animals glow only for a fraction of a second, sending quick pulses of light that convey information before fading back into darkness. It is efficient, subtle, and very polite by deep-sea standards. Of course, not every creature glows. Some species abandon vision almost entirely, relying instead on other senses to navigate their world. Touch, vibration detection, and chemical cues become far more important than sight. Eyes, when they exist, are often enormous relative to body size, designed to capture the smallest possible hint of light. When your entire visual world consists of rare flashes and faint glimmers, yet every photon counts. Evolution responds by turning eyes into massive light-collecting dishes, because missing a single flash could mean missing a meal or becoming one. The absence of sunlight also affects behavior. Without day and night cycles, time loses its usual structure. Many deep-sea animals operate on rhythms tied to food availability or internal biological clocks, rather than external cues. Life becomes less about schedules and more about opportunity. If something edible appears, you respond immediately, because you do not know when the next chance will come. There is no tomorrow in the deep ocean, only now and not now. In this environment, glowing becomes more than a neat trick. It becomes a survival strategy, a communication system, and sometimes a weapon. It allows animals to shape their surroundings in small but meaningful ways, carving out pockets of visibility in an otherwise lightless world. The deep ocean may be dark, but it is not visually empty. It flickers with signals, flashes, and glows like a quiet galaxy hidden beneath the waves. So yes, turning yourself into a glow stick is not just a novelty down there. It is a career move. In eternal darkness, light is power, information, and identity all rolled into one. And while humans might see the deep sea as a black void, its inhabitants see something very different, a place where light still exists, just rewritten by evolution into a language only the deep truly understands. There is a stretch of ocean that exists in permanent indecision. It is not bright, but it is not fully dark either. This is the twilight zone, and a massive layer of water that sits between the sunlit surface and the true deep below. Here, sunlight arrives exhausted, filtered, and weakened, barely strong enough to outline shapes before fading away completely. Shadows blur, colors disappear. The world becomes a gradient of dim blues and grays, as if the ocean itself is slowly falling asleep. This region, known as the mesopelagic layer, spans hundreds of meters in depth and covers most of the planet. It is larger than all of Earth's forests combined, yet remains one of the least observed habitats on the planet. From above, it looks empty. From within, it is astonishingly busy. The twilight zone is not a quiet waiting room between worlds. It is a highway. Every single day, as predictably as the sun rises and sets at the surface, here billions of animals begin a commute that would make rush hour traffic look lazy. As daylight fades, creatures from the twilight zone rise toward the surface under the cover of darkness. As morning approaches, they sink back down again, vanishing into dimness. This daily movement is called vertical migration, and it is the largest mass movement of life on Earth. No exaggeration. Nothing else even comes close. The reason for this commute is simple and ruthless. Food versus safety. Near the surface, microscopic plants grow where sunlight is available, and those plants feed small animals, which feed slightly larger ones, which eventually become meals themselves. Food is abundant up there, but so are predators. The twilight zone offers a compromise. By staying deeper during the day, then animals remain hidden from surface hunters that rely on vision. By traveling upward at night, they can feed when darkness provides cover. It is a perfectly timed dance, choreographed by the rising and setting of the sun far above. This journey is not short. Some animals travel hundreds of meters up and down every single day. That is like hiking a mountain twice daily for your entire life, without weekends off. And they do it with no maps, no clocks, and no caffeine. Their bodies respond to subtle changes in light intensity, sensing shifts so faint that humans would not notice them at all. When the light dims just enough, it is time to move. When it brightens again, it is time to retreat. The twilight zone is full of animals designed for this lifestyle. Many have streamlined bodies built for efficient swimming, or conserving energy over long distances. Their muscles are adapted for endurance rather than bursts of speed. This is not a sprinting world. It is a marathon world. Food may be plentiful for a few hours each night, but the journey to get it is expensive, and wasting energy can be fatal. Predation here works differently too. Visibility is limited, but not absent. Shapes can still be seen, especially when something blocks the faint light from above. This creates a strange visual effect where silhouettes matter more than details. Being seen from below is particularly dangerous because animals above can spot your outline against the remaining glow. As a result, many twilight zone creatures are shaped and oriented in ways that minimize their shadow, flattening their bodies or keeping movements subtle to avoid announcing their presence. And life in the twilight zone also runs on a different sense of scale. Because this layer is so vast and difficult to access, it remained largely invisible to science for a long time. Early sonar surveys revealed something baffling, a massive layer of echoes that rose and fell with the time of day. At first, scientists thought their instruments were malfunctioning. In reality, they were watching life itself move, an entire hidden ecosystem migrating in unison. This daily movement has enormous consequences for the planet. As animals feed near the surface and return to depth, they transport nutrients and carbon downward, linking surface ecosystems with the deep ocean below. The twilight zone acts like a biological elevator, quietly redistributing material through the water column. And it is one of the reasons Earth's oceans function as a global system rather than a collection of isolated layers. Despite its importance, the twilight zone remains elusive. Nets often miss its residents, cameras struggle with the low light, and submersibles can disturb behavior simply by showing up. Much of what we know comes from brief glimpses and indirect measurements, like shadows on sonar screens. It is a reminder that even today, vast portions of our planet operate beyond our direct observation. The twilight zone is not dramatic in the way the deepest trenches are, nor is it comforting like sunlit reefs. It is subtle, dynamic, and constantly in motion. It is a place defined by routine rather than spectacle, where survival depends on timing, efficiency, and knowing exactly when to move. And while humans complain about long commutes, while down here, creatures travel farther every day than most people ever will, all while carrying the quiet understanding that in the twilight zone, being perfectly on time can mean the difference between eating and being eaten. As you descend deeper into the ocean, pressure stops being a background detail and starts becoming the main character. Water is heavy, and when you stack kilometers of it overhead, the weight becomes relentless. At extreme depths, the pressure is so intense that it can warp metal, shatter rigid structures, and squeeze empty space out of existence. For humans, this is a hard limit. Our bodies are built for air, not for being slowly compressed by the equivalent of multiple elephants standing on every square inch. For deep sea life, however, pressure is not an obstacle. It is just the default setting. Yes, the first and most important trick for surviving crushing pressure is surprisingly simple. Do not resist it. On land, rigid structures are useful. Bones provide support, shape, and leverage. In the deep sea, rigidity is a liability. Anything that traps air or maintains a fixed shape is vulnerable to collapse. Deep sea animals avoid this problem by being flexible, compressible, and often boneless. When pressure increases, their bodies simply yield. No cracking, no snapping, no dramatic failure. The ocean squeezes, and they politely squeeze back. Many deep-sea creatures are composed largely of soft tissues, gelatinous structures, and fluids that compress evenly. Water, conveniently, does not compress much under pressure, which means that bodies filled with water are already well suited for deep environments. And instead of fighting the pressure, these animals let it pass through them. It is the biological equivalent of rolling with the punch, except the punch is coming from all directions at once. Bones, when present at all, are often reduced, modified, or replaced with flexible cartilage. Joints are loose. Muscles are arranged to function without relying on rigid leverage. The result is an anatomy that would look flimsy on land, but works perfectly in a place where stiffness is a recipe for disaster. Having no bones might sound like a design flaw, but when the ocean is trying to fold you like laundry, flexibility becomes a superpower. Pressure also affects chemistry, not just structure. Proteins, the molecules that carry out nearly every function in a living cell, are sensitive to pressure. Under extreme conditions, they can lose their shape and stop working. Deep-sea organisms avoid this problem by producing specialized versions of proteins that remain stable even when squeezed. These proteins are fine-tuned to function in environments that would break their surface counterparts, maintaining their shape and activity, despite the constant force pressing in on them. Cell membranes face similar challenges. Pressure can alter how membranes behave, making them too rigid or too leaky. Deep-sea animals adjust the composition of their cell membranes, incorporating specific types of molecules that keep them flexible and functional. This ensures that nutrients can pass in, waste can pass out, and cells continue operating normally, even while the entire organism is being compressed like a sponge. Well, one of the most remarkable aspects of pressure adaptation is that it influences every level of biology, from whole body structure down to individual molecules. There is no single feature that makes an animal pressure resistant. It is an entire suite of adaptations working together, each one solving a specific problem created by living under immense weight. Remove any one of them, and the system fails. This is also why deep-sea animals are so poorly suited to surface life. When brought up too quickly, the sudden drop in pressure can be just as dangerous as the pressure itself. Gases can expand, tissues can rupture, and carefully balanced systems fall apart. These animals are not fragile in their own environment. They are specialized. The deep sea is not a harsher place for them. It is home. Pressure also shapes behavior, and movements tend to be slow and deliberate, not because these animals are weak, but because rapid motion is unnecessary and inefficient in a world where energy is precious. Structural simplicity reduces the cost of maintenance. Soft bodies require less material and fewer resources to build and repair. Over evolutionary time, this efficiency becomes a major advantage. What emerges from all this is a deep-sea world filled with creatures that look alien, not because they are bizarre, but because they are honest. They are shaped directly by their environment, with no extra features that do not serve a purpose. Every soft edge, every flexible joint, every molecular tweak exists because the pressure demanded it. So while humans build thick-walled submersibles and hope they hold together, Deep sea life takes a different approach. Yet it does not armor itself against the ocean. It harmonizes with it. In a place where pressure is constant and unavoidable, the smartest move is not to resist being crushed, but to become something that cannot be crushed at all. Below the twilight zone, the ocean crosses an invisible boundary and enters a realm where sunlight is no longer even a rumor. This is the midnight zone, a place of absolute darkness, stretching downward for thousands of meters. Here, vision based on sunlight is completely obsolete. Food is painfully scarce, and survival depends on being ready for opportunities that may come once in a lifetime. In this world, predators cannot afford to be picky. When something edible appears, hesitation is not an option. The animals that hunt in the midnight zone are not built for speed or elegance, but they are built for efficiency and excess. Food arrives unpredictably, often as a single passing organism, or a rare drifting meal. Missing one chance could mean months of waiting for the next. As a result, deep-sea predators evolved a simple rule. If it might be food, eat it. If it is too big, find a way to make it fit. This philosophy explains the nightmare anatomy of creatures like anglerfish. These predators are not large by surface standards, but their mouths are enormous relative to their bodies. Hinged jaws, flexible skulls, and recurved teeth allow them to swallow prey nearly as large as themselves. Their stomachs stretch dramatically, accommodating meals that would be impossible for rigid-bodied animals. When you live where food is rare, overeating is not a vice, it is a survival strategy. Or gulper eels take this approach even further. Their mouths are less like jaws and more like expandable nets. They open impossibly wide, engulfing prey along with a large volume of water, then slowly close and swallow whatever ended up inside. Precision is less important than capacity. In the midnight zone, you do not wait for the perfect meal. You capture the opportunity and deal with the details later. Teeth in the midnight zone are often long, needle-like, and angled inward. Once prey enters the mouth, escape becomes extremely difficult. These teeth are not designed for chewing, they are designed for holding on. Breaking down food happens later, slowly, once the predator has retreated back into the safety of darkness. Energy is conserved at every step, no unnecessary motion, no wasted effort. Yet many midnight zone predators also rely on ambush tactics rather than pursuit. Chasing prey through darkness would be energetically expensive and unreliable. Instead, predators remain still, conserving energy while waiting for something to drift close enough to strike. This stillness can last for hours or days. Muscles, nerves, and senses are tuned for sudden action after long periods of inactivity, like a biological trap waiting to be sprung. Body shapes in this zone often reflect this lifestyle. Long, slender forms reduce energy costs and make it easier to remain suspended in the water. Some predators have reduced muscle mass compared to surface hunters, trading speed for patience. When prey is rare, endurance and timing matter more than raw power. Yet another striking feature of midnight zone predators is their ability to eat prey of wildly varying sizes. Their digestive systems are built to handle irregular feeding schedules. Metabolism can slow down after a meal, stretching the energy from a single feeding event over long periods. This allows predators to survive extended famine without constant hunting. It is not a feast or famine lifestyle. It is a feast then coast for a while lifestyle. These extreme feeding adaptations come with risks. Swallowing large prey can leave predators vulnerable while digesting, making them slower and less responsive. But in the midnight zone, risk is unavoidable. The environment forces animals into trade-offs, and the cost of missing a meal is often higher than the risk of taking one that is too big. Well, what makes the midnight zone especially unsettling to human observers is how unapologetic these adaptations are. There is no attempt to look graceful or balanced. Form follows function in its rawest state. If a mouth needs to unhinge like a horror movie prop, then that is exactly what evolution delivers. Down here, aesthetics do not matter. Survival does. Despite their fearsome appearance, these predators are not aggressive in the way humans imagine. They are not actively hunting everything around them. They are waiting, conserving, responding only when opportunity demands it. In a world defined by scarcity, restraint is just as important as ferocity. The midnight zone is not full of constant violence. It is full of long pauses, punctuated by brief, decisive moments. When those moments come, we as predators must be ready to act instantly and decisively. Oversized mouths, flexible jaws, and expandable stomachs are not exaggerations. They are solutions to a problem the surface world rarely encounters. So when you picture life in the midnight zone, imagine patience stretched over vast distances and long stretches of time, broken only by sudden action. In a place where meals are rare and the next opportunity is never guaranteed, having a mouth that can swallow almost anything is not monstrous. It is just good planning. In the deep ocean, light is not just something you see, it is something you deploy. By the time you reach depths where sunlight no longer provides cover, bioluminescence stops being a novelty and becomes a toolkit. Down here, light is used the way humans use camouflage, smoke screens, flashbangs, and advertising all at once. The result is an ecosystem where deception is not optional. It is survival. One of the most elegant tricks in the deep sea is counter-illumination. Imagine an animal swimming in open water, silhouetted against the faint glow filtering down from above. To a predator looking up, that silhouette is a giveaway, a dark shape moving across a slightly lighter background. Counter-illumination solves this problem by flipping the script. Instead of hiding in darkness, the animal produces light on its underside, matching the brightness of the water above it. The silhouette disappears. From below, the animal simply vanishes, erased by its own glow. This is not random glowing. It is precision lighting. These animals adjust the intensity of their light to match their surroundings, compensating for changes in depth, water clarity, and time of day. Too bright, and they announce themselves. Too dim, and the outline returns. Getting it right means becoming visually invisible in the open ocean, which is about as close to a superpower as biology allows. Other species use light not to hide, but to mislead. Sudden flashes can startle predators, creating a moment of confusion that allows for escape. Some animals release glowing clouds or shed bioluminescent material, leaving behind a floating distraction while they slip away into darkness. It is the underwater equivalent of throwing a glowing decoy and running in the opposite direction. Simple, effective, and deeply unfair to the predator. Light can also be used offensively. Certain predators emit focused points or patterns of light that attract curious prey in a dark environment, and anything glowing becomes interesting by default. Prey approach, investigate, and only realize too late that the light is attached to something with teeth. It is not an aggressive chase. It is a trap built on curiosity, patience, and the assumption that something glowing might be worth checking out. Some deep-sea animals take deception even further by using light to manipulate perception. By flashing specific patterns or timing their glow carefully, they can make it difficult for predators to judge distance, speed, or direction. In darkness, visual information is already limited. Add misleading signals, and the entire scene becomes unreliable. A predator may strike where it thinks the prey is, only to hit empty water. Color also plays a role in these visual tricks. While most deep-sea light appears blue-green, and some species exploit wavelengths that behave differently in water, producing light that blends perfectly with ambient conditions allows animals to disappear in plain sight, while producing light that stands out dramatically can overwhelm or distract. It is not just about being seen or unseen. It is about controlling how others interpret what they see. These strategies require fine control and rapid response. Light organs are often wired directly to the nervous system, allowing animals to activate them instantly. There is no warm-up period, no delay. A threat appears, and the response happens immediately. In an environment where reaction time can mean survival, this speed is critical. What makes these bioluminescent tricks especially impressive is that they operate in three-dimensional space. Unlike land environments, the ocean has no fixed ground or ceiling. Predators and prey can approach from above, below, or any angle in between. Light-based deception must account for this complexity, working effectively regardless of viewing angle. That requires an extraordinary level of evolutionary fine-tuning. Despite the sophistication of these strategies, they are not foolproof. Nothing in the deep sea is guaranteed. Predators adapt. Prey adapt in return. Visual tricks that work today may fail tomorrow, driving the constant evolutionary arms race that defines life in darkness. Still, the prevalence of bioluminescent deception tells us how valuable light manipulation is in this environment. When sunlight is gone, controlling artificial light becomes one of the most powerful tools available. From a human perspective, it is tempting to think of these displays as beautiful or theatrical, and they are, but they are also practical, ruthless, and efficient. There is no wasted glow, no decorative sparkle. Every flash, pulse, and shimmer exists because it improves the odds of survival. So when you imagine the deep sea lighting up with sudden flashes and glowing forms, remember that you are not watching a random light show. You are watching a battlefield of illusions where animals weaponize photons with the skill of seasoned illusionists. Long before movie screens and digital effects, the deep sea mastered the art of visual deception, proving that Hollywood did not invent special effects. It just borrowed the idea from a much darker place. In the deep ocean, nothing arrives quickly, and nothing arrives fresh, if food exists at all, and it usually shows up as a gentle drizzle of crumbs falling from a world far above. This drifting rain of organic debris is known as marine snow, and despite its cozy name, it is not made of anything you would want to catch on your tongue. Marine snow is a mix of dead microscopic organisms, fragments of plants and animals, waste particles, and assorted biological leftovers clumped together into tiny flakes. It falls slowly, constantly, and with the quiet determination of gravity doing its job. From the surface, marine snow is invisible and easy to forget. From the deep sea, it is everything. It is the foundation of entire ecosystems, the primary source of energy in a place where food does not grow locally. Imagine living in a desert where groceries arrive only as wind-blown dust, and you begin to appreciate the challenge. Down here, Their survival depends on making the most of whatever happens to drift past. Marine snow forms when surface life sheds material. Microscopic organisms die, larger animals produce waste, and bits of organic matter clump together as they sink. Along the way, bacteria colonize these particles, breaking them down and changing their chemistry. By the time marine snow reaches the deep ocean, it has been processed, recycled, and repackaged multiple times. It is less a meal and more a biological care package that has been opened and resealed by half the ocean on its way down. For deep-sea organisms, marine snow is not just food, it is an event. Many animals position themselves to intercept it, extending feeding structures into the water like biological nets. Others crawl slowly across the seafloor, yet collecting particles that have finally settled after their long descent. Nothing is wasted. Even the smallest flakes are valuable because calories are rare and opportunities are limited. Feeding on marine snow requires patience. There is no chasing, no hunting, no dramatic strikes. It is a lifestyle built around waiting and efficiency. Some animals filter vast amounts of water to capture microscopic particles. Others rely on sticky surfaces or delicate appendages that snag passing debris. Every method is tuned to maximize intake while minimizing energy expenditure. When food arrives this slowly, burning extra calories would be counterproductive. Marine snow also creates hotspots of activity. When larger clumps fall, they can attract multiple organisms, all drawn to the same limited resource. These gatherings are brief but important, are moments when energy is suddenly concentrated in an otherwise sparse environment. Once the food is consumed, the crowd disperses, and the seafloor returns to its usual quiet. Microorganisms play a crucial role in this system. Bacteria and other microbes break down marine snow into simpler components, releasing nutrients that can be reused by other organisms. This recycling process ensures that energy is extracted as thoroughly as possible. In the deep sea, nothing is thrown away. It is repurposed, reprocessed, and reused until there is almost nothing left. The pace of this food delivery system is famously slow. A single particle of marine snow can take weeks or even months to reach the deepest parts of the ocean. During that time, it may be eaten, altered, or broken apart multiple times. By the time it settles on the seafloor, and it has been on a long, strange journey through the water column, for the animals waiting below, this delay is normal. The deep sea does not do instant gratification. This slow delivery shapes everything about deep sea life. Growth rates are often low, lifespans can be long, and reproduction may be infrequent. Energy is budgeted carefully because replacing it takes time. Marine snow may fall continuously, but it does so in such small amounts that survival depends on consistency rather than abundance. From a human perspective, marine snow sounds unappealing. It is cold, decomposing, and arrives at a pace that would make any modern delivery service shut down in shame. But in the deep ocean, it is a miracle of logistics. It connects surface life with the deepest habitats, transporting energy across vast distances without any central control. And gravity does the work. Life adapts to receive it. Without marine snow, much of the deep ocean would be uninhabitable. It is the quiet link between worlds. The reason animals can exist in places where no sunlight ever reaches. It may be the least glamorous food delivery service on Earth, but it is also one of the most reliable. Every flake that drifts downward carries the promise of survival, reminding the deep sea that even in darkness, the surface has not completely forgotten about it. When people imagine the deep ocean, they often picture tiny, fragile creatures clinging to survival in an unforgiving world. Then they learn about animals like the colossal squid, and that mental image immediately collapses under the weight of a creature the size of a bus with eyes as big as dinner plates. The deep sea, it turns out, has a habit of producing giants. Not everywhere, not in every species, but often enough to make one thing clear. Small is not the only winning strategy down there. Deep-sea gigantism is not about monsters for the sake of monsters. It is a pattern that appears again and again across unrelated groups, from invertebrates to crustaceans. The question is not why these giants exist, but why the deep ocean makes being enormous a viable option. The answer lies in a combination of physics, chemistry, and patience. Cold water is one of the key ingredients. In the deep ocean, temperatures are consistently low, often hovering just above freezing. Cold slows metabolism. For deep-sea animals, this means energy is burned more slowly, allowing bodies to grow over long periods without requiring constant feeding. Growth becomes a gradual process, stretched across decades, rather than rushed through a few intense years. When you are not in a hurry, size becomes something you can afford. Cold water also holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water. Oxygen is essential for fueling large bodies, especially muscles and nervous systems. In surface environments, oxygen availability can limit how big animals can get. In the deep sea, oxygen-rich waters remove some of those constraints. This allows larger bodies to function without suffocating under their own demands. Bigger does not mean gasping for breath when the chemistry supports it. Buoyancy plays a quiet but important role as well. Water supports weight in a way that air never could. On land, large animals must contend with gravity, constantly pulling them down, stressing bones, joints, and muscles. In the deep ocean, buoyancy offsets much of that burden. Bodies can grow large without collapsing under their own mass. Size becomes less about structural support and more about internal organization. Being large also comes with practical advantages in an environment defined by scarcity. A bigger body can store more energy, allowing animals to survive longer periods without food. It also allows for longer distance movement without immediate refueling, which can be useful when resources are spread thin across vast areas. In a place where meals are unpredictable, having a built-in reserve is a smart investment. Predation pressures shape size as well. In the deep sea, there is no shelter in the traditional sense. No trees to hide behind, no burrows to retreat into easily. Size itself can become a form of protection. Or fewer predators can handle extremely large prey, and even fewer can do so efficiently. Growing big reduces the number of threats you have to worry about, even if it increases the effort required to find food. Gigantism also ties into life history strategies. Many deep-sea giants grow slowly, mature late, and reproduce infrequently. This is not a flaw. It is a reflection of stable conditions. The deep ocean does not experience seasons in the way surface environments do. Temperatures remain steady, and catastrophic disturbances are rare. In such a stable setting, longevity and slow growth can be more successful than rapid reproduction. When nothing is forcing you to rush, taking your time pays off. The colossal squid embodies all of these principles. It grows slowly in cold, oxygen-rich waters, and supported by buoyancy, and fueled by an efficient metabolism. Its massive eyes are adapted to detect faint disturbances across long distances, a necessity when interactions are rare and opportunities must be seized when they appear. Its size is not excess. It is optimization. What is important to understand is that deep-sea gigantism is not universal. It appears where conditions allow it and disappears where they do not. Some deep-sea species remain tiny because small size offers its own advantages. The deep ocean is not pushing everything toward gigantism. It is simply removing the barriers that make gigantism impossible elsewhere. From a human perspective, the idea of giants lurking in darkness feels dramatic. But from an evolutionary perspective, it is calm, logical, and almost inevitable. Given enough oxygen, enough time, and enough stability, life explores size the same way it explores shape or behavior. It experiments. So when you hear about supersized creatures in the deep ocean, do not imagine a place gone wild. Imagine a place where biology has room to stretch, literally and figuratively. Down there, supersize me is not a reckless choice. It is a strategy refined over millions of years, quietly proving that in the right conditions, bigger really can be better. In the deep ocean, time behaves strangely, not in a science fiction way, but in a biological one. While surface environments constantly change, reshaped by climate swings, shifting continents, and mass extinctions, the deep sea has remained stubbornly consistent, cold, dark, and isolated for millions of years. It has become a kind of evolutionary quiet room, and in that quiet, some animals simply never change much at all. These creatures are often called living fossils, a term that does not mean they are outdated or poorly adapted. Quite the opposite. It means their designs worked so well that evolution saw no urgent reason to tinker. When an organism fits its environment perfectly, natural selection does not demand innovation. It shrugs, nods approvingly, and lets things continue as they are. Take the coelacanth, a fish once thought to have vanished with the dinosaurs. Its discovery in the 20th century was not just surprising, it was humbling. Here was a lineage that had been cruising the deep ocean for hundreds of millions of years, largely unnoticed, while humans were busy assuming it was gone. Its body plan, with thick fins and a robust frame, reflects an ancient blueprint that continues to function flawlessly in its stable environment. The key to this evolutionary stability is not laziness, it is consistency. The deep ocean does not experience rapid environmental change. Temperatures remain nearly constant. Light never returns. Physical conditions stay within narrow ranges for incredibly long periods of time. In such an environment, drastic adaptation is unnecessary and even risky. Changing a successful design could reduce efficiency rather than improve it. Goblin sharks provide another excellent example. With their elongated snouts and protrusible jaws, they look like something assembled by a committee that never met. And yet, this odd design has persisted for millions of years. The goblin shark's features are not experimental leftovers. They are solutions to specific challenges in deep water, honed over vast stretches of time. When a design solves the problem, evolution keeps the blueprint. What is fascinating about these animals is that they are not frozen in time completely. Their internal biology continues to function, reproduce, and respond to subtle pressures. Small changes occur, genes mutate, populations shift. But the overall form, the recognizable shape, remains remarkably consistent. Evolution does not require visible transformation to be active. Sometimes its greatest achievement is restraint. The deep ocean rewards stability because instability is expensive, energy is limited, opportunities are rare. A radical redesign of body structure requires resources, time, and risk. In contrast, maintaining a proven form allows organisms to focus on survival rather than reinvention. The deep sea is not a place for fashion trends. It is a place for reliability. This explains why living fossils are not scattered evenly across the planet. They tend to appear in environments that are isolated, stable, and slow to change. The deep ocean checks all those boxes. It acts as a refuge, protecting ancient lineages from the rapid shifts that wipe out less adaptable forms elsewhere. While surface species are forced to evolve quickly or disappear, deep-sea species can afford to stay the same. From a human perspective, it is tempting to think of these animals as relics, clinging to outdated designs. But that view misunderstands evolution entirely. There is no finish line. There is no prize for being the most modern. Evolution favors what works right now. And for these animals, what worked millions of years ago still works today. In some cases, their ancient features even offer advantages modern designs cannot match. Robust bodies, slow metabolisms, and conservative life strategies make them well suited to environments where change is rare, but unforgiving. They are not behind the times. They are perfectly on time, just operating on a much longer schedule than we are used to. So when we encounter animals like coelacanths and goblin sharks, we are not looking at failures of evolution. We are looking at its long-term successes. These species did not miss the memo about updating their design. They read it, considered it carefully, and decided there was no need. In the deep ocean, consistency is not stagnation, and it is survival perfected over hundreds of millions of years, quietly proving that sometimes the best way forward is to stay exactly where you are. When people think of coral, they usually imagine warm, shallow reefs, bathed in sunlight and colour. The deep ocean politely ignores that expectation. Far below the surface, where darkness is permanent and temperatures hover near freezing, corals and sponges still build, still grow, and still create some of the most complex habitats on the planet. These are not reefs in the tropical sense. They are cities, slow-grown and ancient, constructed without sunlight and maintained over centuries. Deep-sea corals do not rely on photosynthesis. Instead of hosting sun-powered partners, they feed by capturing tiny particles drifting through the water. Feathery arms extend into passing currents, are snagging bits of organic matter with remarkable efficiency. Growth is slow, sometimes painfully so. Some deep-sea corals add only millimeters per year, but they do so consistently, layer by layer, decade after decade. Over time, these structures become towering frameworks that reshape the seafloor around them. Sponges play a similarly important role. Often overlooked because they lack obvious movement or drama, sponges are engineering marvels. They filter enormous volumes of water, removing particles, recycling nutrients, and quietly cleaning their surroundings. Their bodies form complex three-dimensional shapes, riddled with channels and cavities that provide shelter for countless other organisms. What looks like a lump of living furniture is, in reality, a high-rise apartment complex for deep-sea life. Together, the coral gardens and sponge fields transform otherwise empty stretches of seafloor into bustling neighborhoods. These structures provide surfaces to cling to, crevices to hide in, and elevated positions that improve access to food drifting past. In a flat, sediment-covered environment, any vertical structure is valuable. It changes water flow, traps nutrients, and creates microhabitats with slightly different conditions. Diversity follows. What makes these deep-sea cities especially remarkable is their durability. Built in a stable environment with little disturbance, they can persist for hundreds or even thousands of years. Some coral colonies alive today began growing long before human civilization existed. They are living archives, recording environmental conditions in their layers as they grow. Or each slow addition is a chapter in a story written at a geological pace. Despite their importance, these habitats remained largely invisible to science until relatively recently. They are fragile, slow to recover, and easily damaged by physical disruption. A single destructive event can undo centuries of growth in moments. Unlike surface reefs, which may recover over years or decades, deep-sea coral gardens may take generations to rebuild, if they recover at all. The animals that live in these cities are as varied as the structures themselves. Small fish weave between branches. Invertebrates anchor themselves to sponge surfaces. Mobile scavengers patrol the outskirts, taking advantage of the increased activity. Each species occupies a niche, benefiting from the shelter and resources provided by the larger framework. It is an ecosystem built on cooperation, even if none of the builders are consciously aware of their role. What is especially striking is that none of this requires sunlight. Energy arrives indirectly, carried by currents and falling debris, but organization emerges nonetheless. Structure leads to diversity. Diversity leads to resilience. The deep sea does not need bright light to build complexity. It needs time, patience, and consistency. From a human perspective, it is difficult not to admire the efficiency. These organisms construct thriving communities without meetings, regulations, or debates. They grow where conditions allow and adapt to what is available. No zoning disputes, no urban planning committees, just biology doing what it does best when left alone. These seafloor cities remind us that complexity is not exclusive to places we can easily see. Some of the most intricate ecosystems on Earth exist far beyond our usual awareness, quietly supporting life in places we once thought barren. While humans argue endlessly about how to build and maintain functional communities, deep-sea corals and sponges have been doing it successfully for millennia, all without sunlight, blueprints, or a single complaint. On the deep seafloor, there are places where the ocean appears to be doing something it absolutely should not be doing. Instead of being cold and still, the ground leaks superheated fluid, rich with chemicals, pouring out of cracks like the planet forgot to turn off a valve. These are hydrothermal vents, and they are among the strangest, most energetic environments on Earth. If the rest of the deep sea feels like a quiet, slow-moving world, vent sites feel like industrial zones built by geology itself. Hydrothermal vents form where seawater seeps into cracks in the ocean crust, sinks deep enough to heat up, reacts with surrounding rock, and then rises back out loaded with dissolved chemicals. When this fluid meets the freezing seawater, minerals precipitate out, forming chimney-like structures that can grow taller over time. The water pouring out may look like smoke, but it is actually a shimmering mix of hot fluids and minerals, rich in compounds that most surface life would consider toxic. And yet, life thrives here, not just survives but flourishes. The key difference between vent ecosystems and almost every other ecosystem on Earth is how they get their energy. There is no sunlight to power photosynthesis. Instead, life here runs on chemosynthesis. Certain bacteria use chemical reactions, often involving sulfur compounds, to produce energy and build organic material. In simple terms, they eat chemistry for breakfast. These bacteria are the foundation of the entire vent ecosystem, playing the same role plants play on land. Once bacteria establish themselves, everything else follows. Large animals gather around vents, not because they enjoy boiling water, but because they rely on these bacteria directly or indirectly for food. Tube worms are the most famous example. These towering tube-dwelling animals can grow several feet tall and lack something most animals consider essential: a mouth. They do not eat in the traditional sense. Instead, their bodies house massive populations of chemosynthetic bacteria that produce food internally. The relationship between tube worms and bacteria is a textbook example of biological teamwork. The worms supply the bacteria with chemicals and oxygen absorbed from the vent water, while the bacteria convert those chemicals into usable energy. The worm provides housing and transportation. The bacteria handle the cooking. It is a perfectly balanced arrangement, assuming you are comfortable living next to scalding fluid erupting from the sea floor. Other animals take different approaches. Some graze directly on bacterial mats, coating rocks near vents. Others prey on the grazers. Crustaceans, worms, and specialized snails all find ways to plug into this chemically powered food web. The result is a dense or bustling community in an environment that should, by all surface world logic, be completely uninhabitable. Vent ecosystems are also incredibly patchy. They appear suddenly, persist for decades or centuries, and then disappear when geological activity shifts. This means vent organisms must be excellent colonizers. When a new vent opens, larvae drifting in the deep ocean must find it, settle quickly, and establish a functioning community before conditions change again. Life here is built for opportunity, not permanence. The conditions around vents are extreme, even by deep-sea standards. Temperatures can vary dramatically over very short distances, creating sharp gradients between scalding and near-freezing water. Chemical concentrations fluctuate. Stability is localized and temporary. Yet within these constraints, a life adapts with remarkable precision, occupying narrow zones where conditions are just right. What makes hydrothermal vent worlds so important is not just their strangeness, but what they tell us about life itself. They demonstrate that sunlight is not a universal requirement for complex ecosystems. Given the right chemistry, life can build entire worlds powered by reactions happening deep within a planet's crust. This idea has reshaped how scientists think about the potential for life elsewhere in the universe. From a storytelling perspective, vents feel like science fiction made real. Towering chimneys, alien-looking animals, energy generated from raw chemistry. But there is nothing fictional about them. They are real, they are active, and they are a reminder that Earth is capable of supporting life in ways that challenge our assumptions. If most ecosystems are solar-powered, hydrothermal vents are nuclear reactors by comparison. They run entirely on chemistry, independent of the sun, humming away in darkness. It is less like a reef and more like a sci-fi power plant built by geology and staffed by bacteria. And in the deepest parts of the ocean, that chemical engine keeps running, proving that life does not need light to be brilliant. Not all strange deep-sea ecosystems announce themselves with dramatic plumes of hot water and mineral chimneys. Some are quieter, slower, and far easier to miss. Cold seeps do not roar or steam, they simply leak. From cracks in the seafloor, methane and other hydrocarbons ooze out steadily, that's creating invisible chemical fountains in an otherwise still environment. To humans, a methane leak is a problem that comes with warning signs and evacuation plans. To deep-sea life, it is an invitation. Cold seeps form where organic material buried beneath the seafloor breaks down over long periods of time, producing methane-rich fluids that slowly migrate upward. The temperatures remain close to that of the surrounding ocean, which is why they are called cold seeps, but chemically they are anything but boring. Methane, sulfides, and other compounds seep into the water and sediments, creating pockets of energy in a landscape that is otherwise starved for food. Just like hydrothermal vents, cold seeps support ecosystems powered not by sunlight, but by chemistry. The difference lies in the fuel. Instead of relying on heat-driven reactions, the cold seep communities are built around methane and sulfur compounds released at a leisurely pace. Microbes capable of using these chemicals flourish here, forming the base of a food web that looks nothing like anything at the surface. These microbes do not just float around passively. They form dense mats across the sea floor and within sediments, turning chemical leaks into biological hotspots. Some bacteria consume methane directly, using it as an energy source. Others process byproducts of those reactions. Together, they create a layered system of metabolisms that squeeze every possible calorie out of what would otherwise be wasted chemistry. Larger animals take full advantage of this microbial productivity through symbiosis. Many cold seep animals host bacteria inside their bodies, or forming partnerships that blur the line between individual organism and ecosystem. Certain clams, mussels, and worms house methane, or sulfur-consuming bacteria within specialized tissues. The animals supply their bacterial partners with access to chemicals and oxygen. The bacteria, in return, produce food. No hunting required. Just internal farming, fueled by gas. These partnerships allow animals to grow large and abundant in places where traditional food sources are scarce. Dense clusters of seep-associated species can form, creating oases of life surrounded by relatively barren seafloor. To an explorer descending into the deep, stumbling across a cold seep community can feel like finding a bustling town in the middle of a desert. The creatures that live here are not just chemically unusual, yet they are behaviorally and structurally adapted to a world where the ground itself provides sustenance. Many remain anchored to specific seep locations because moving away from the chemical source would mean starving. Mobility becomes less important than proximity. Stability, once again, is rewarded. Cold seeps also persist for long periods of time, sometimes thousands of years. Unlike vents, which can shut down abruptly, seeps tend to be slow and steady. This longevity allows communities to become well established, with generations of organisms living and dying in the same chemical neighborhood. Over time, carbonate structures can form as byproducts of microbial activity, creating hard surfaces that further expand available habitat. What makes cold seeps especially fascinating is how alien their logic feels to humans. We associate methane with danger, flammability, and climate warnings. In the deep ocean, it is food. Life has found a way to treat a potential hazard as a resource, turning leaks into lifelines. The same molecule that triggers alarms in industrial settings becomes the foundation of entire ecosystems. These environments also highlight how flexible metabolism can be. Life is not locked into a single way of extracting energy. Given the right conditions, it will exploit whatever chemistry is available. Cold seeps prove that even slow, subtle processes can sustain complex communities, provided there is enough time and consistency. From a distance, cold seeps may seem unremarkable. No towering chimneys, no boiling water, just quiet patches of seafloor doing something slightly different. But zoom in, and they reveal worlds built on cooperation between microbes and animals, powered by gases drifting up from deep within the earth. So yes, some deep-sea creatures quite literally live on what we would call a dangerous gas leak. They thrive on it. They depend on it. In the deep ocean, methane is not a warning sign. It is a dinner bell, ringing softly through the darkness, calling life to gather where chemistry makes survival possible. If the deep ocean has cities, factories, and bustling neighborhoods, it also has emptiness. A lot of it. The abyssal plain is the deep sea's great open expanse, a vast flat seafloor stretching across thousands of kilometers, with almost no topography to break the monotony. It is one of the largest habitats on Earth, yet it feels strangely empty, like a landscape paused in time. Imagine a desert with no dunes, no landmarks, and no obvious shelter, then flood it with cold, dark water and remove the sky. That is the abyssal plain. This region lies far below the reach of sunlight and far from the drama of vents, seeps, or coral cities. There are no towering structures here, no chemical fountains feeding dense communities. Instead, life exists in a state of quiet persistence. Food is rare, scattered, and unpredictable. Most of it arrives indirectly, drifting down from far above, settling gently onto the sediment after a long journey. When it comes, it does not announce itself. It simply appears. Because resources are so limited, animals of the abyssal plain have adopted survival strategies built around efficiency. Movement is often slow and deliberate. Or there is no advantage to sprinting when there is nowhere specific to run and nothing guaranteed to chase. Energy is conserved like a precious currency, spent only when absolutely necessary. In a place where food falls from the sky once in a while, burning calories recklessly would be a fatal mistake. Many abyssal animals live in close contact with the seafloor, interacting directly with the sediment. They feed by sifting, probing, or ingesting the upper layers, extracting whatever organic material has settled there. This material may be sparse, but over vast areas and long periods, it adds up. Survival here is not about finding big meals. It is about making a living off crumbs. The bodies of abyssal organisms often reflect this lifestyle. They are frequently flattened, elongated, or otherwise shaped to maximize contact with the seafloor. And appendages may be adapted for gentle digging or sweeping motions, rather than grasping or striking. Nothing is built for speed. Everything is built for endurance. Predation still exists, but it operates at a low intensity. Encounters are rare, and both predators and prey are adapted to long intervals between interactions. Camouflage, subtlety, and stillness are common tactics. Being unnoticed is often safer than being fast. In an environment this open, drawing attention can be dangerous. Reproduction strategies also reflect scarcity. Many abyssal species produce relatively few offspring, investing heavily in each one. Others rely on long-lived larvae that can drift and settle wherever conditions allow. There is no guarantee that any particular patch of seafloor will provide enough resources for a growing population, so flexibility becomes essential. What is especially striking about the abyssal plain is how stable it is. Unlike surface environments shaped by weather and seasons, this landscape changes slowly. Sediments accumulate gradually. Disturbances are infrequent. When something does change, it may take centuries to return to its previous state. This stability allows life to persist with minimal innovation, but it also means recovery from disruption is slow. Despite its apparent emptiness, the abyssal plain plays an important role in the global ocean system. It acts as a sink for organic material, storing carbon and nutrients over long timescales. The slow processing of material here influences chemistry far beyond the deep sea itself. What happens on the abyssal plain does not stay on the abyssal plain. It quietly shapes the planet, While from a human perspective, the abyssal plain can feel underwhelming. There are no obvious spectacles, no dramatic structures to photograph. But its significance lies in scale. It is the backdrop against which all other deep-sea habitats exist. It is the default state of the deep ocean, the baseline from which complexity emerges when conditions allow. Living here requires patience and persistence. It is not a place of abundance, but it is not lifeless either. It is a world where survival depends on accepting long waits, subtle opportunities, and the occasional gift drifting down from above. Like a desert, where food falls from the sky once in a while, the abyssal plain teaches a simple lesson. Even in the quietest, most resource-poor environments on Earth, life finds a way to endure. In the deep ocean, standing out is rarely a good idea. Yet there are no coral colours to blend into, no leafy shadows to hide behind, and no sunlight to cast comforting darkness. Instead, there is open water and a constant risk of being seen from the wrong angle at the wrong time. In this world, camouflage does not mean matching your surroundings. It means disappearing from them altogether. One of the most effective strategies for deep-sea camouflage is transparency. If your body lets light pass straight through, there is nothing for predators to see. Transparent animals become living windows, present in space, but nearly absent visually. Organs are minimized or rearranged, tissues are flattened, and reflective surfaces are reduced to avoid catching stray light. The goal is not beauty or symmetry. The goal is optical erasure. Transparency works especially well in open water, where there are no solid backgrounds to provide contrast. A predator scanning the darkness may see only what blocks or reflects light. A transparent body does neither. It exists as a faint distortion at most, easily overlooked in an environment already short on visual information. In the deep sea, being hard to see is better than being fast. Red coloration is another brilliant trick that sounds counterintuitive until you understand the physics. In deep water, red light does not travel far. It is absorbed quickly, disappearing within the upper layers of the ocean. As a result, red objects appear black in deep-sea conditions. By wearing red, animals effectively cloak themselves in darkness. What would look bright and obvious at the surface becomes perfect camouflage in the depths. Whilst this makes red one of the most common colours among deep-sea animals, even though humans rarely see it without artificial light. Turn on a submersible's lamp, and suddenly the darkness blooms with reds, oranges, and deep crimsons that were previously invisible. Turn the light off again, and they vanish. The colour was always there. You just were not equipped to see it. Invisibility in the deep sea also involves reducing reflections. Shiny surfaces are dangerous. Even a small glint can give away your position. Many deep-sea animals have matte textures, absorbent skin, or specialized structures that scatter light instead of reflecting it. This prevents sudden flashes that could draw attention. In a place where bioluminescent signals exist, accidental sparkle is a liability. Body shape plays a role too. Rounded forms minimize sharp edges that could create visible outlines. Long, smooth contours reduce shadows and make it harder to judge size and distance. Some animals orient their bodies vertically to reduce their visible profile when viewed from below or above. Camouflage here is three-dimensional, designed to work from multiple angles at once. Behavior reinforces these physical adaptations. Remaining still is often the best way to stay hidden. Movement, even subtle movement, can betray an animal's presence. Many deep-sea species adopt a low-motion lifestyle, drifting or hovering with minimal effort When they do move, it is controlled and purposeful, avoiding unnecessary disturbance of the water around them. What makes deep-sea camouflage especially fascinating is that it is not about blending in with a colourful environment, and it is about exploiting the limitations of vision itself. Darkness, absorption of certain wavelengths, and the scarcity of light become tools. Evolution does not just respond to what predators can see, it responds to what they cannot. This leads to a strange visual world where the most common colours are ones you never notice, and the most effective camouflage looks like nothing at all. Animals are not hiding behind things, they are hiding from physics. By aligning their bodies with how light behaves underwater, they step outside the visual rules that govern the surface world. To humans, this kind of invisibility feels almost magical. But in the deep sea, it is practical. Predators rely on limited cues. Removing yourself from those cues reduces the chance of an encounter. In an environment where every interaction carries risk, your invisibility is a powerful defense. So while surface animals advertise with bright colors and patterns, deep-sea creatures go in the opposite direction. Their fashion choices are minimalist, functional, and ruthless. Transparent bodies, red that looks like black, textures that swallow light. In the deep ocean, being invisible is not just stylish, it is the ultimate survival statement. Finding a partner in the deep ocean is not a matter of awkward small talk or bad profile photos. It is a mathematical problem bordering on absurd. Imagine living in near total darkness, spread thin across enormous volumes of water, with no landmarks, no social gathering spots, and no guarantee you will ever encounter another member of your species. In that environment, while reproduction becomes less about romance and more about not missing the one chance you might ever get. This scarcity of encounters has pushed deep-sea animals towards some of the most extreme reproductive strategies on the planet. When meeting another individual is rare, evolution does not prioritize elegance. It prioritizes certainty. Few examples illustrate this better than parasitic male anglerfish. In these species, males are dramatically smaller than females and live with one primary mission: find a female before they starve. They do not grow large jaws or elaborate bodies. They grow excellent noses. Their sense of smell is so refined that they can detect chemical traces released by females across vast distances. When a male finally finds a female, he does not court her. He bites her. Once attached, the male's tissues fuse with the female's body. Over time, his circulatory system connects to hers, and he becomes entirely dependent on her for nutrients. His organs reduce until little remains beyond reproductive tissue. He is no longer an independent organism in the traditional sense. He is a permanent biological attachment, ensuring that whenever the female is ready to reproduce, a mate is already present. As strange as this sounds, it is a remarkably efficient solution. The female never has to search for a partner again. The male never risks missing his opportunity. In a world where encounters are rare and energy is precious, this system removes uncertainty entirely. Deep-sea dating does not ask, "What if?" It locks in the answer. Not all deep-sea species go this far, but many exhibit strategies that reflect the same underlying challenge. Some produce enormous numbers of eggs or sperm, releasing them into the water in hopes that a few will meet by chance. Others synchronize reproduction with environmental cues, increasing the odds that individuals are active at the same time. Timing becomes a substitute for proximity. There are also species where individuals are capable of producing both eggs and sperm at different times, reducing reliance on finding a specific partner type. flexibility becomes a reproductive advantage. When encounters are unpredictable, being adaptable can mean the difference between passing on your genes and disappearing from the evolutionary record. Energy investment is another major factor. Producing offspring is expensive, and especially in an environment where calories are hard to come by. Many deep-sea animals produce fewer offspring, but invest heavily in each one, increasing survival odds. Others take the opposite approach, producing many offspring with the understanding that most will not survive. Both strategies can work, depending on how resources and risks are distributed. What unites all these approaches is a willingness to abandon surface world norms. Pair bonding, elaborate courtship displays, and repeated mating opportunities are luxuries of environments where individuals regularly encounter one another. In the deep sea, reproduction must be efficient, reliable, and often final. There may not be a second chance. This leads to reproductive systems that seem extreme only because we are comparing them to our own. From an evolutionary perspective, they are practical responses to isolation. The deep ocean does not reward subtlety in this arena. It rewards solutions that maximize success under severe constraints. There is also a quiet honesty to these systems. No wasted effort, no prolonged searching, no ambiguity. When reproduction happens, it happens decisively. The cost of failure is too high to allow for anything else. So when you hear about parasitic males, fused bodies, or mass spawning events in the deep sea, resist the urge to label them as bizarre. They are not evolutionary mistakes. They are finely tuned answers to one of life's hardest questions. How do you find someone like you in a place that feels infinite? By comparison, human dating suddenly looks easy. At least we can see each other. Down there, in the dark. And deep-sea creatures have solved the problem of reproduction with ruthless efficiency, proving that when partners are scarce, evolution stops swiping and commits immediately. In a world where darkness is permanent and visibility is unreliable, communication has to get creative. The deep ocean is not a place where waving or flashing colours will reliably get someone's attention. Light fades, vision fails, and distance stretches everything thin. So deep sea life turns to a different set of tools, ones that travel farther and care less about darkness, sound, vibration, and pressure. Water is an excellent medium for transmitting sound. Low-frequency waves, in particular, can travel vast distances with minimal energy loss. This makes sound an ideal communication channel in the deep sea, where individuals may be separated by large spaces and obstacles are few. Instead of shouting visually, animals send signals that ripple through the water itself, felt as much as heard. Many deep-sea animals are highly sensitive to vibrations. Specialized organs detect subtle changes in pressure, allowing them to sense movement, locate other organisms, and interpret signals without ever seeing their source. A passing current, a swimming predator, or a potential mate all create distinct patterns in the water. To creatures tuned into this sensory world, the ocean is constantly humming with information. Low-frequency sounds are particularly useful because they travel farther and bend around objects more easily than high-frequency ones. In the deep ocean, where obstacles are minimal and distances are vast, this allows communication to extend well beyond visual range. A signal sent by one animal can be detected by another far away, provided both are tuned to the same frequencies. Not all communication is intentional. Movement itself, sends information. Swimming patterns, fin strokes, and even changes in buoyancy create pressure waves that can be detected by nearby organisms. In this way, animals are constantly announcing their presence, whether they mean to or not. The challenge becomes controlling what you broadcast and when. Some species take advantage of this by minimizing noise. Slow, smooth movements reduce turbulence and vibration, helping animals avoid detection. Others do the opposite, using deliberate movements or specialized structures to generate signals that serve specific purposes. Communication here is not about volume. It is about clarity and timing. Chemical signals also play a role, drifting through the water and conveying information over time rather than distance. While slower than sound, chemical cues can persist, providing long-lasting messages about presence, identity, or reproductive readiness. These signals are invisible, silent, and difficult to trace back to their source, making them useful in an environment where discretion matters. What makes non-visual communication especially fascinating is how integrated it is with the environment. Signals are shaped by currents, absorbed by sediments, and altered by temperature and pressure. Animals must interpret messages that arrive distorted and delayed, filtering meaningful information from background noise. This requires highly specialized sensory systems and processing abilities. For humans, and it is difficult to imagine navigating the world this way. We rely heavily on sight and quick visual confirmation. In the deep sea, information arrives through touch-like sensations and subtle vibrations. It is less like reading a message and more like feeling one. When light is useless, you learn to feel your texts instead of seeing them. These communication systems also influence behavior and social structure. Group coordination, spacing between individuals, and responses to threats are all mediated through non-visual cues. Even solitary animals benefit from being able to detect others at a distance, allowing them to avoid conflict or take advantage of opportunities without direct contact. Importantly, these systems do not replace vision entirely. They complement it. In the deep ocean, no single sense is reliable enough on its own. And survival depends on integrating multiple streams of information, each compensating for the limitations of the others. Sound and vibration provide reach. Chemical cues provide persistence. Together they create a rich sensory landscape invisible to human eyes. The deep sea may appear silent and empty to us, but it is anything but. It is alive with signals moving through water in ways we rarely notice. Conversations happen without words, warnings spread without light, and presence is announced without sound as we understand it. In this dark world, communication does not disappear. It simply changes form, proving that when vision fails, life finds other ways to stay in touch. Death in the deep ocean does not come with fanfare. When an animal dies, there is no ceremony, no pause, and certainly no waste. Within hours, sometimes minutes, as scavengers arrive, they do not mourn. They get to work. In an environment where food is scarce and unpredictable, nothing edible is allowed to linger unused. The deep sea runs on efficiency, and scavengers are the system's quiet maintenance crew. Scavengers occupy a crucial role in deep-sea ecosystems. They specialize in finding and consuming dead or dying material, breaking it down and returning its nutrients to the environment. Without them, organic matter would accumulate, locking away energy that other organisms depend on. With them, even death becomes a resource. Hagfish are among the most infamous members of this cleanup crew. Eel-like and jawless, they look more like biological accidents than animals, but their design is perfectly suited for their job. Hagfish locate carcasses using an acute sense of smell, sometimes arriving from surprising distances. Once they find a meal, they do not politely nibble from the outside. They burrow directly into the body, consuming it from the inside out. This feeding method allows hagfish to exploit food sources other animals cannot easily access. Thick skin, tough muscle, and awkward angles are not barriers when you simply enter through an opening and work your way outward. Their flexible bodies and knotting behavior help them tear off chunks of flesh, maximizing efficiency. It is not pretty, but it is effective. Amphipods play a different but equally important role. These small, shrimp-like crustaceans often arrive in massive numbers, swarming carcasses in dense clouds. Individually, they are tiny. Collectively, they are unstoppable. Then a large carcass can be reduced to little more than bones in a remarkably short time when amphipods are involved. What makes amphipods especially effective is their speed and coordination. They reproduce quickly, locate food rapidly, and exploit it thoroughly. Their swarming behavior ensures that no edible tissue is overlooked. In the deep sea, size is not always power. Sometimes numbers win. Scavengers are not limited to large, obvious carcasses. They also consume smaller debris, scraps left behind by predators, and organic material that sinks from above. This constant recycling keeps nutrients moving through the ecosystem. Energy does not disappear. It changes hands. The presence of scavengers also influences the behavior of other animals. Predators may abandon kills earlier, knowing scavengers will arrive soon. Some species time their feeding to avoid competition, while others tolerate scavengers as an inevitable part of the process. The deep sea is not about exclusivity. It is about throughput. Scavenging requires a unique set of adaptations. Strong digestive systems capable of handling decomposing material, resistance to bacteria and toxins, and the ability to endure long periods without food are all essential. Scavengers must be ready to exploit opportunities whenever they appear, even if that means waiting for extended stretches in between. These animals also serve as connectors between ecosystems. By breaking down large carcasses, they make nutrients available to microbes and smaller organisms, which in turn support larger food webs. The cleanup crew does not just remove waste, it fuels renewal. From a human perspective, our scavengers often get an unfair reputation. They are associated with decay, mess, and unpleasant imagery. In the deep sea, they are heroes. They prevent waste, maintain balance, and ensure that nothing valuable is lost. Without them, the deep ocean would grind to a halt under the weight of its own inefficiency. So yes, someone has to take out the trash, even at the bottom of the ocean. And down there, the job is done with remarkable speed and dedication. Hagfish, amphipods, and countless other scavengers keep the deep sea clean, functional, and alive, proving that in the darkest places on Earth, even death has a purpose. When people imagine intelligence in animals, they often picture environments rich with visual information, colourful reefs, complex forests, or bustling social groups. The deep ocean challenges that assumption immediately. There is no light to read facial expressions, no landmarks to memorize, and very few neighbors to interact with regularly. And yet, intelligence still evolves here. Quietly, efficiently, without applause. In the deep sea, intelligence is not about showing off. It is about solving problems under extreme constraints. Food is scarce. Encounters are rare. Mistakes are expensive. In this context, a brain is not a luxury. It is a tool for flexibility, allowing animals to adapt behavior rather than anatomy when conditions change. Cephalopods, the group that includes octopus relatives living in deep water, are some of the most striking examples. Their intelligence is not built around social cooperation or communication. It is built around interaction with the environment. These animals explore, test, and manipulate their surroundings, as learning through direct experience rather than instruction. Curiosity becomes a survival trait. What makes their intelligence especially unusual is how it is distributed. Instead of relying entirely on a centralized brain, much of their processing occurs throughout their bodies, particularly in their arms. Each arm can sense, respond, and make decisions semi-independently. This allows for rapid problem-solving in complex situations, such as navigating uneven terrain or handling unfamiliar objects, without waiting for instructions from a central command center. In darkness, this decentralized intelligence is incredibly useful. When vision provides little guidance, touch and spatial awareness take over. Arms explore crevices, test surfaces, and gather information through direct contact. The animal builds a mental map of its surroundings through interaction rather than observation. Intelligence becomes tactile. Other deep-sea animals display cognitive flexibility in different ways. Some show remarkable spatial memory, allowing them to return to specific locations in an otherwise featureless environment. Others demonstrate learning through repeated exposure, adjusting behavior based on past success or failure. These are not reflexive responses. They are adaptive strategies refined through experience. Problem solving in the deep sea often involves efficiency rather than complexity. When energy is limited, the smartest solution is usually the one that conserves the most effort. This leads to behaviors that appear calm and deliberate rather than frantic or aggressive. Intelligence here is subtle. It avoids unnecessary risk. The absence of light does not limit intelligence. It reshapes it. Instead of relying on visual cues, deep-sea animals integrate information from touch, chemical signals, pressure changes, and internal states. The brain becomes a hub for synthesizing incomplete data, making decisions with limited input. This kind of intelligence does not look dramatic, but it is deeply effective. What is particularly fascinating is that intelligence evolves independently in multiple deep-sea lineages. These animals are not closely related, yet they arrive at similar solutions. Learning, memory, and behavioral flexibility. This suggests that intelligence is not tied to any single environment or lifestyle. It emerges wherever problem-solving provides an advantage. In some cases, intelligence helps animals deal with novelty. The deep ocean may be stable overall, but local conditions can change. Food sources appear unexpectedly. New obstacles emerge. Being able to adjust behavior without waiting for genetic change allows animals to exploit opportunities immediately. A flexible mind can respond faster than evolution ever could. From a human perspective, it is tempting to associate intelligence with complexity and activity. But in the deep sea, intelligence often looks like restraint, knowing when not to act, knowing when to wait, knowing when a problem is not worth solving because the cost is too high. This is intelligence tuned to scarcity. So while the deep ocean lacks sunlight, it does not lack thought. Brains still evolve. Learning still matters, curiosity still pays off. Intelligence does not require bright environments or constant stimulation, and it requires challenges, and the deep sea offers plenty of those. In the end, deep sea intelligence reminds us that thinking is not about where you live. It is about how you adapt. And in a world of darkness, pressure, and uncertainty, some of the smartest solutions are the quietest ones. No sunlight required, just good problem-solving skills. For most of human history, the deep ocean existed as an idea rather than a place. It was a blank space on maps, a depth marked by guesses and imagination. When humans finally began to interact with it, those encounters were rarely planned explorations. More often, they were surprises. Nets came up heavier than expected. Cables snagged on something alive. Cameras revealed shapes no one had ever seen before. The deep sea has a habit of introducing itself when we are busy doing something else. While one of the earliest ways humans encountered deep sea life was through trawling. Fishing gear dragged along the seafloor occasionally returned with animals that looked nothing like surface species. These were not targeted discoveries. They were accidental passengers, pulled from environments we barely understood. While trawling provided the first glimpses of deep-sea biodiversity, it also highlighted how poorly equipped we were to study it without causing damage. As technology advanced, submersibles changed the game. For the first time, humans could visit the deep ocean directly, observing animals in their natural environment instead of as damaged specimens hauled to the surface. These missions revealed behaviors and ecosystems that nets could never capture. Still, even with careful planning, many discoveries remained accidental. A camera pointed one direction would miss something extraordinary just out of frame. A light would illuminate a creature that no one expected to be there. Undersea cables have also played an unlikely role in discovery. Stretching across ocean basins, these cables occasionally come back with stowaways or reveal strange interactions when they are inspected or repaired. Animals settle on them, investigate them, or get tangled in them. Each encounter provides clues about life in places humans rarely observe directly. What becomes clear through all these encounters is how little we actually know. The deep ocean is vast, beyond easy comprehension, and only a tiny fraction of it has been explored visually. New species are still being described regularly, not because we are actively searching every corner, but because we keep stumbling into them. While it is a bit like discovering new rooms in your house by accidentally walking through walls, this accidental nature of discovery has shaped our understanding of the deep sea. Many species are known from only a handful of sightings or specimens. Some are identified from blurry images or partial remains. This creates challenges for classification and understanding behavior, but it also highlights the sheer scale of what remains unknown. Human presence in the deep sea is brief and limited. Submersibles can only stay down for so long. Equipment fails. Conditions are harsh. Each visit is a snapshot rather than a continuous observation. As a result, much of what we know comes from fragments stitched together over time. Every encounter adds a piece to a puzzle that is still mostly missing. Or there is also a sense of humility that comes with these discoveries. The deep ocean does not reveal itself easily or on our schedule. It reminds us that exploration is ongoing, incomplete, and often driven by chance. Even with advanced technology, we are still outsiders, catching glimpses rather than gaining mastery. At the same time, these accidental discoveries are undeniably exciting. Few scientific fields offer the possibility of seeing something no human has ever seen before. Each descent carries the potential for surprise. Each unexplained shape on a screen sparks questions and curiosity. The deep sea rewards attention with wonder. This blend of ignorance and discovery defines our relationship with the deep ocean. We know enough to realize how much we do not know. Every new species found accidentally reinforces that point. And it is not ideal science, but it is honest science. Exploration often begins with surprise. In the end, human encounters with the deep sea are reminders of our limits. We are guests in a world that does not need us and does not reveal itself easily. And yet, despite the accidents and uncertainties, each encounter expands our understanding. We keep finding new animals by accident, and while that may not be the most controlled way to do science, it keeps the sense of discovery very much alive. The deep ocean feels eternal. It is dark, vast, and old beyond imagination, a place that seems immune to the brief concerns of surface life. For a long time, humans assumed it was untouchable simply because it was hard to reach. But distance is not the same as protection, and the future of the deep sea is far more fragile than its appearance suggests. As human technology advances, the deep ocean is no longer beyond our influence. Activities once confined to shallow waters are creeping deeper, driven by demand for resources and space. Mining interests eye the seafloor for metals essential to modern technology. Expanding infrastructure stretches farther offshore. Climate-driven changes ripple downward from the surface. The deep sea may be remote, but it is no longer isolated. One of the greatest challenges in protecting deep-sea ecosystems is invisibility. People tend to care most about what they can see. Forests burn, reefs bleach, glaciers melt. The deep ocean, hidden beneath kilometers of water, changes quietly. Damage happens out of sight, and that makes it easy to ignore. Out of sight, unfortunately, often becomes out of mind. Deep-sea mining is a clear example of this problem. The seafloor contains mineral-rich deposits formed over extremely long timescales. Disturbing them does not just remove material, it disrupts habitats that may take centuries or longer to recover, if they recover at all. Sediment plumes spread far beyond the mining site, altering environments well outside the immediate area. The consequences are not dramatic in the moment, but they are lasting. Climate change adds another layer of complexity. Warming oceans alter circulation patterns, oxygen levels, and chemistry, all of which affect deep-sea life indirectly. The deep ocean relies on a delicate balance maintained over long periods. Even small changes, spread over vast areas, can reshape ecosystems that evolved under stable conditions. The deep sea is slow to adapt, not because it is weak, but because it has never needed to be fast. The difficulty is that we are making decisions faster than we can fully understand their impact. The deep ocean remains one of the least explored environments on Earth. Yet we are already planning how to use it. Protecting something we barely understand requires humility, patience, and restraint. Qualities not always associated with human progress. Why does protecting unseen life matter? Because these ecosystems are not separate from the rest of the planet. They influence global cycles, store carbon, recycle nutrients, and support biodiversity on a scale that rivals more familiar environments. The deep ocean is not a distant curiosity. It is part of Earth's life support system, quietly doing its job whether we notice or not. There is also an ethical dimension. Many deep-sea species exist nowhere else. Their entire world lies beyond human sight. They have evolved over millions of years without any awareness of us. The fact that we rarely encounter them does not make them expendable. It simply means they have been spared our attention until now. The deep ocean teaches a powerful lesson about perspective. It reminds us that importance is not measured by visibility. Some of the most essential processes on Earth happen far from view, sustained by organisms that will never be famous, photographed often, or easily explained. Their value does not depend on our approval. Protecting the deep sea does not mean freezing it in time or banning all interaction. It means proceeding carefully, acknowledging uncertainty, and recognizing limits. It means understanding that some places cannot be treated as empty simply because we do not live there. The absence of humans does not equal the absence of life. As we look toward the future, the deep ocean stands as a test of how we treat the unseen. Will we value only what is convenient and familiar, or will we extend care to places that require imagination to appreciate? The answer will say a great deal about our relationship with the planet. In the end, the deep sea asks very little of us. Mostly, it asks to be left intact long enough for us to understand it. Just because something lives where we rarely go does not mean it deserves to be treated as out of sight and out of mind. Sometimes, the most important worlds are the ones we have barely begun to see.